Welcome to another exciting edition of the Kansas NG911 GIS User Group meeting for the second quarter for 2026. Can't believe it's already June, but here we are. So we sure like this format, so we keep sticking with this general plan, which is we provide, at least you guys know what to expect, right? We'll provide a program update, and that's going to be split between myself and Alan Schaefer, who's going to talk about the Critical Facilities Mapping Project. And then we'll hand it off to Will Trimble to talk about the toolbox and anything data processing related. And then fortunately, Sherry Massey was able to join us again today. And so she'll round us out with discussions about NENA and GeoMSAG and any kind of national things we need to know about, or other state 911 board related things that she wants to share with us. So I'm glad you all could join us today. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is the plans for another imagery acquisition in 2027. So once again, thanks to funding from the Kansas 911 board, the state has put out, actually the RFP has been published at the state on the state of Kansas supplier portal, with plans to collect another statewide collection of imagery. The specs are pretty similar. We've put out specs for collecting 1 foot with the option of considering 6-inch. As you all know, sensors have gotten better, things have changed, so we're kind of just going to see if there's any wiggle room in the budget to be able to increase that resolution that we collect statewide. So no promises, or don't know anything yet. Like I said, right now the RFP is out, and we're waiting bids and proposals to come through. But it will follow most of the other resolutions, which is statewide leaf off 4-band imagery. We'll get it delivered to us in the new state plane 2022 statewide zone, as well as the older state plane projections. And we tacked on a few other things, asking for, which was part of kind of an evolution we went through on the last acquisition, that as we migrate a lot of our services to the cloud, we've kind of had to adjust the imagery format to this cloud optimized GeoTIFF for serving out the imagery services, as well as building a tile cache for the imagery that's pulled into the call handling mapping solution. So there's a few more elements that's changed in the whole technical configuration of hosting that imagery, but so we've included that in the request, as well as the good news is we also have newer QL1 LiDAR available now for not the whole state, but a good portion of the state for ground control and things. So excited that RFP has been released, and excited it's open now. I think it closes on June 18th. So we should have a lot more information on our next quarterly meeting about if a contract has been extended and the plans going forward for collecting that imagery. In general, for a calendar timeline though, since we're going for leaf off again, we would be looking at this collection taking place early next year. So it would be generally for our leaf off, the flights are mid to late February, depending on snow, into early mid-April. So that's usually the time frame they get planes up in the air and actually collect the imagery. So that is our plan once again. As usual, if you have any questions about this, you can put them in the chat, or feel free to reach out to us anytime with those questions. Okay, so that's it for imagery. The next thing I wanted to bring up was the sharing of 911 GIS data. So this came up because I recently had another county contact me and say, you know what, can you just make it so you can share all of our data? We're tired of people calling us for requests for 911 address points and roads, or pointing them to the portal, or talking to our vendor about that, all that. So I wanted to remind everyone that a few years ago, we put out a request to everyone, all of the PSAPs in the state, and said, hey, would you be willing to publicly share your 911 address points and your 911 roads? Well, when we put out that request, we had 81 PSAPs agree to publicly share their address points, and we had 89 PSAPs agree to publicly share their roads. So the great thing about that is with those PSAPs that have approved, we actually share that data and make it available on the DASK GeoPortal hub. So it's available for download from that location. And the other benefit is also submitted and included in the address points are at least in the National Address Database, which is a database extensively used by anyone, state agencies, federal agencies, commercial partners, nonprofits. You know, everyone's always looking for good, accurate, authoritative data. And this is a nationwide effort. So feel free to Google and look up the National Address Database. You'll see the participation from the states. And majority of states are participating. Our state is participating. It looks kind of like a patchwork quilt. So we'd like to fill it in to have as many people share their data publicly as possible. I could go on a whole hour-long lecture on why it's good to share your data. So we can improve accuracy of data, packages getting delivered, you know, obviously for emergency services, but even things like land management, you know, prescribed burns, notifications of people. There's just so many reasons where you need to know where you're going, right? Even if it's just, I want to go visit my friend in some town. So always encourage everyone to share their data. So I'm telling you all this because we still continue to manage those data requests through the 911 portal, which is totally fine. And if you don't have it marked that your data is publicly shared, we still contact the GIS data steward to get approval before to ask if they approve or deny the request. So depending on their responses, whether or not we process the data and distribute it. So my plan is to reach out to the remaining PSAPs that either some of these PSAPs either didn't respond because they didn't have someone in place, or maybe they still were reviewing policies, or maybe they've changed their mind, like this PSAP that recently contacted us. So I'm going to contact the rest of you, and it might be some of you on the call, I don't know, that don't currently publicly share your data, and ask you if you're still considering it, or if you would consider going public with that data, so we can get more of this data out there for people to use for multiple purposes around the world, really. If you have any questions on that, please feel free to put them in the chat again, or contact me with any of your questions. Okay, for this point, I think I'm going to hand it off to Alan to take it over to talk about the Critical Facilities Mapping Grant.
Thanks, Eileen. Good afternoon, everyone. I just got a couple of short blurbs here on the Critical Facilities Mapping Grant project. Some of you guys probably already know about this, but there was an additional $2 million in funding secured for the next year to continue to collecting indoor mapping data. Right now, we're focusing on K through 12 schools across the state of Kansas. And as of the last time I checked the portal, I think there have been just under 900 K through 12 facilities, and a facility could include one or more schools on a site or in the immediate area, have applied so far. And a few of those are still awaiting estimates, but almost all of those are currently active projects in some phase or another. We don't have any word on potential funding, but if there is interest out there, please apply. The more interest there is, the more people see value in this kind of mapping, the more likely that the legislature could approve additional funding. It's kind of a neat little blurb just to add in that this has been a very efficient project, that less than 4% of the funding has gone toward admin, and really almost all of it is going toward the actual mapping and GIS data creation. So that's kind of neat. And also just want to remind everyone that even if there is no more additional funding, that if you are interested in mapping any kind of school, government-owned post-secondary institution, government building, healthcare facility, or a mass gathering site, that you can use the existing negotiated contracts to purchase your indoor mapping. And that's valid through to the third quarter of 2029. So even if the funding does all get spoken for in this project, if there's interest in it, there's still going to be value for you to look into this. You can use the existing contracts. If you need help from us doing QA, I think we can work something out. So next slide, please. Right now, the projects are all from the very first phase to still collecting data and doing site visits. We've done QA QC on a fair number. I think around 100 facilities have moved toward the final approval process. And just as a reminder, we have a 3-step approval process to ensure that we're getting high quality, accurate data that meets our requirements. The facility owner, mostly school administrators or people that are familiar with the site, they have to sign off to ensure that the data collected is accurate. We at DASC do a technical review to ensure that the maps and GIS data meet the RFP standards and is usable, valuable data. And then it'll head to your PSAP administrator or whoever's going to be responsible for the final approval from the PSAP before a given project's closed out. And so there's 119 eligible PSAPs and around 1,500 schools eligible for this. So, there have been a lot of participants, but not everyone signed up. So next slide, please. And I think we've got a map, and I forgot we had one more slide here. I wanted to give a little bit more additional information on the QA process because that's probably if you guys haven't been involved yet, then there's a pretty good chance you might be involved at some point. Where we have the school involved, like we said, to ensure that the data is accurate. We look at it from a technical perspective, and then PSAP needs to do a final sign off before any kind of payment to ensure that it meets your needs. And so if you do get called by an administrator or someone involved in the grant and that they want some help approving, there is a document on the portal that gives some tips and tricks as to what to look for when doing a CFM project approval. And so there's a link there on your screen. We might be able to stick it in the chat as well when we're done. And then we got one more slide with, if you're curious how the project is going, we have a dashboard here at DASC that's keeping track of where all of our projects are, which PSAPs are participating and how many facilities they have. And there's a link down at the bottom that you can use if you're interested. So we have just around 1,000 facilities that have been submitted. So that's mostly K through 12, but there are some mass gathering sites and higher education facilities that are currently pending, but they've still been submitted. And if you have sites like that in your community and there's interest in getting a map, send in an application. As you can see, when this screenshot was taken, we've just under 100 have passed both the facility and the technical review, and we're starting to get final approvals to trickle in as well. So that's about all I had. I think we'll move on to Will for his updates, unless anyone has any questions.
Yeah, any questions for Alan? I'm trying to monitor the chat, so anything comes up, we can also come back to you. If you have any questions? Oh, you had another slide.
Oh, there was one more slide. I'm bad. The next steps, of course, is continuing the final deliveries. We're still working on finalizing our integration into Radius and Lightning. So we do expect them to be available in there, but just not quite yet. This project just includes the initial data and map generation. It does not include any funding for maintenance. So, but we do want to encourage, whether it's done in-house or whether you guys contract with your vendors, to have some sort of maintenance plan in place. I know we've already had one school district that has done some remodeling and additions since the first mapping process was done earlier this year. And we know that's going to happen. And there's a lot of money, and this is a fairly decent sized project. So I think it would be in everybody's best interest that we have a maintenance plan going forward. And there will definitely be some lessons learned on this project. I would just say, observing so far, um, we learned a little bit of this in the pilot project, but each facility and each vendor kind of has their own way of doing things and their own way of doing business. And so it's nice to ensure you know what you're getting when you pick a vendor and make sure to pick someone that meets your needs and expectations. So I'm sure we'll have more to expand on that during our next user group meeting. And now I think we're ready for Will.
Right, perfect. Thanks, Alan. And still watching. I don't see any questions yet, so we'll go ahead and hand it off to Will.
Thanks, Alan, and welcome everybody. I'll keep this relatively short and sweet. Similar to last quarter, we have a number of big initiatives going on here at DASK this year in 2026. We're moving most of our data processing from on-premises to the cloud. So that's all of our major functions have been transitioned, and we're working on some of our peripheral tasks now. So that's continuing to progress. With that comes some new workflows that are continuing to update, some of them being developed as we get through technological hurdles, or initial plans may not have worked for the technology we were trying out, and we have shifted to a different solution, but that's continuing along. And then along with those changes comes updates to the toolbox, and a transition to Pro. So working on finishing that up and continuing to update some new documentation. And next slide, please. So with that, we're going to release the Pro Toolbox on Monday, the 8th. So that would be next Monday. This is hosted on GitHub. There will be some minor changes to the way the toolboxes are on GitHub. The latest toolbox that will be the Pro Toolbox will still be available at the traditional download that we have, because that'll be the latest version of the toolbox. However, I'm going to shuffle in a new directory that will have essentially the current toolbox that is fully compatible still with desktop. And we're planning to support that through at least the end of the year, potentially longer depending on functionality. But that will have its new place in GitHub, so that if you want that version that is not specifically Python 3 and a Pro supported toolbox, it will still be available. We'll try and continue to support some submission and usage of that toolbox again through the end of this year. Next slide, please. And again, going into Pro support, there will be one final non-Python 3 Pro Toolbox updates that will fix a few of the errors that we had in the pipeline. And so that you'll see an update for that first if you're getting alerts from GitHub, and then there'll be a follow-up update that will be 3.3.01, and that will be the Pro Toolbox. And there may be another release shortly after that. I'm working out one issue related to attribute rules. I think we have 3 PSAPs right now that are submitting data with attribute rules, but the function to remove those rules, both in Python and in the ArcGIS Pro UI, are having some issues with data. If you try and select all the rules to remove them, it is crashing, but it will function if you remove them one at a time or several at a time. I haven't quite figured out what's going on with that as far as why it's struggling to remove them all at once, but that may be something that gets pushed out at a later date when I can figure out that bug. Without it in there, it's just a manual thing. It's a mission for those 3 PSAPs, so it's not a huge deal, but it may just be that's a Pro bug. So anyway, I'm working out figuring that small part out, but otherwise, it seems to be pretty smooth sailing in Python 3 toolbox. So that'll be coming out here soon. And yeah, that's all I have. So yeah, be looking for a release on Monday. And again, we'll continue to support desktop as long as possible. That will be available. It's possible if something crazy happens as well, we may do another update to that if needed. But I don't, because Esri is not supporting that any longer. There haven't been any reason to have any changes that are happening in the desktop version that should affect functionality there. So, but it's possible if we do some more things related to any of the formats for the data model, etc., that we'll push that out into the older version as well, so that any data model changes doesn't strand that, at least through the end of the year. And then we'll discuss maybe if people are still using it beyond 2026, if we'll continue to update that if we have data model changes, etc. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. My contact's below, and thank you.
Oh, thanks. Well, I think that's a really good point that while, we're doing our best to also be ready for everyone to use Pro, I did a quick little casual poll in the chat. And it's, for those that replied, it's pretty much an even split. Some are Pro, some are using desktop. So Will has just done an exceptional job supporting everyone, and he will continue to do so. So we're definitely not going to strand anyone or just abandon something, but I guess we'll have to figure out how much time we can support both, in addition to Esri deprecating desktop. So just something, I know everyone has this and they're thinking about this, or they're, come to the realization that, oh geez, I got to use Pro. I think we've all been in that space for a while, but like Will said, any question for him, let him know, but he's doing a great job supporting both, and we'll get everyone moved over to Pro eventually. So, all right, thank you. Okay, let me go on to, now we're going to hand it off to Sherry.
Thank you. So I just wanted to give you guys kind of a general update on how things are going with the State 911 Board. Our transition to a state agency is complete, I'm happy to say. It's been a lot of work, and at this point, I'm really happy to have it behind me. So we also received news that Radius, which is the mapping application with the hosted solution, will be the map that is used across Motorola's public safety applications. So it will be the map, not just in call handling, which is where it is now for us, but in all forms of Motorola's call handling. It will be the map they use in radio consoles, and they plan for it to be the map they use in other applications related to their cameras and a variety of things, integrating it in more and more places as time goes on. It's really good news for us for a couple of reasons. First, it means that we know the application is going to continue to get a lot of attention and a lot of development over time. But from a GIS perspective, it is also very good news, because we already have the procedures in place to get data into Radius. And it means that the efforts that you will be putting, and that you have been putting into doing regular data submissions and things like that, will pay off in increasing numbers of applications across the public safety footprint. So like I said, that was very good news for us to hear, and I think it's very, very helpful on the GIS side as well. I'm also making a little bit of a plug here. So the State 911 Board has 2 open positions, and they both happen to be positions identified by the statute right there. 2 members representing information technology personnel from governmental units. And yes, GIS does qualify in that case. These are voting positions, and one of the positions came open when one of our board members was hired as a staff member, and the other position is coming open as one of our board members is terming out. She has performed 2 full terms, and that's Jack Brown from Riley County. So if anybody is interested, you can sure reach out to me and I can give you the link to apply to be a member of a board under the governor, because all of these are gubernatorial appointments. We are not responsible for selecting individuals, but we kind of help recruit and then give you the application link so that you can fill things out. So if anybody is interested, I would love to see GIS folks on the board. Next slide, please. Couple of updates on standards and training stuff. So NINA's NG911 data model, which we have discussed before, it has been fully released. And at the NINA conference this year, the group of co-chairs for that model, including me, will be giving a presentation about the effort to get to a finished version 3 and kind of the things that we have been asked to consider going forward. It is not very likely that this version, which obviously was just finished, is going to change substantially in the future, but NINA is considering both indoor mapping standards and potentially working on a CAD mapping standard. And those would sort of be adjuncts or alongside this NG911 data model. So if you happen to be going to NINA, please stop by NCS. And for everybody that's doing data maintenance here, we'll be keeping an eye on and participating in any efforts around GIS data at NINA so that we can make sure and keep you guys as informed as possible. For training, our standard data maintainer training will be pre-conference at CAM again, and your every single user group a reminder that you are entitled to access to the public safety platform database. Because we maintain the records in that database with GIS data, the need to get into it is relatively infrequent, but if you do need access and don't have it, let us know. And we will communicate with AT&T and get you going down that road. Next slide, please. And I guess that was it. So we have.
Sorry, I was just saying, I was double checking. That's why I flipped back and forth. I was like, was that the last one? So yeah.
I couldn't remember. I mean, Alan was the other direction. He had more than he remembered. I remembered having one more and I don't. So we are done.
It happens, yeah. Good. Well, thanks, Sherry. I'm watching to see if there's any questions for you. So as a reminder, we have these quarterly user group webinars, and as you can see, we've got our normal updates and things we talk about. But if there's a particular topic that you're like, I've been getting questions about this or wanted to know more about something, maybe it's something we've talked about but haven't in a couple years, feel free to reach out to us and we can integrate that into these quarterly webinars. So if you happen to have a new GIS data steward, which would be someone representing your PSAP, they can always do training on the 911 learning platform for PSAP personnel. Of course, as Sherry mentioned, the GIS data maintainer training will continue to be held in person as a pre-conference session at CAM, and it's free. You don't actually have to be registered for the conference. CAM's always generous and allows us to have the space pre-conference for that. Information about 911, specifically more GIS, is always available on the Desk Hub. The state 911 board website has been refreshed and released when the transition to the becoming a state agency happened. So go check it out. It looks great. They've got a whole page about the critical facilities mapping project with a lot of links to like QA for the PSAPs and school districts and how to submit an application to be considered for the grant and get facilities mapped. So there's a lot of good information out there specifically on that project if you want to know more about that. And then, of course, there's the 911 portal where you submit your data and we receive data requests and everything. A reminder that URL has changed. It's a redirect right now, but that now the new URL that was released in April is listed there at the bottom. So with that, that's all we have today. I don't see any questions in the chat. Did anyone want to come off mute and have any questions? Okay, not hearing it from anyone. Thank you all for joining us. And we'll send out the notice for the next one. Probably will be August or sometime, but we appreciate you all being here, and you know how to contact us if you have any questions in the meantime. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day.